Thanks everyone for being patient. My name is Amina Dib and I'm the chair of the Residential Construction Council of Ontario's Anti-Racism Roundtable. I'm also the manager of government and stakeholder relations. And so today we're gathered here to recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is on March 21st, this upcoming Sunday. And so I guess I'll just go over why it's important and kind of the history of the day. So since 1960, annually, the 21st of March marks International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. It's a United Nations recognized observance. And this year, the theme of the day is Youth Standing Up Against Racism. And over the past 10 months, RESCON, through the launch of the Anti-Racism Roundtable, has brought together a growing coalition of stakeholders within the construction industry to stand up against racism and discrimination. And through the roundtable, we're advocating for anti-discrimination and anti-racism training for workers, dedicated skilled trades training programs for BIPOC youth interested in careers in construction, and just generally raising awareness of the work that roundtable members are doing to combat racism and discrimination in the construction industry. And on that note, I see that our first special guest is here. I'll turn it over to Carly Meness, who is an Indigenous woman working for Hydro One as a grounds person and is soon to be a power line technician apprentice. Welcome, Carly.
Saying big way, which is hello. Carly Dishnikas, that means my name. So I'm just basically saying hello everyone. My name is Carly. I'm of the Bear Clan and I'm from Pequawknagon. Pequawknagon is a small reserve just an hour and a half out of Ottawa, and it is made up of the Algonquin people. So first off, I'd like to thank you for the invite and to share and bring recognition to my culture for the purpose of eliminating racial discrimination. I'd like to bring up and recognize that we're currently in a huge land claim that has been going on since the mid-1980s. And this land claim stretches across Ontario from North Bay to Montreal and down to Kingston. It covers about 36,000 square kilometers. So as of now, everything settled within the territory is sitting on unceded Algonquin territory. And this is including the capital of our country. It is very important that our rights and natural resources and watersheds are preserved for us, as our territory is based on the Ottawa and Mattawa rivers, and they're used as a necessity for our trades and hunting and gatherings. We need to keep them there and protect them. So that, like I said, this land claim has been in the process since the mid-1980s, and to this day, it still has a few years before it's completed in this final stage. There's a lot of debate and topics going on about it. Definitely way more to say in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But if you're interested, I definitely encourage you to take a look online, search it up. So as I'm currently working with Hydro One, and it's so great. They have a lot of policies and procedures to protect their workers from discrimination at the workplace. I love it here. Everyone is super friendly, and it feels good to work in a place where you don't have that discrimination or feel like there's hate or anything of that nature in the job. It makes everything fun and easygoing. I also got this job through an Indigenous training facility. It's called Kajitamikam. They helped put me through this 14-week course. And that was with IHSA, the Infrastructure of Health and Safety Association. And they gave me the skills and the knowledge to be here today, which I'm eternally grateful for. It's hard being a woman working in the trades, and it's usually a man-run thing. Like, usually men are the only workers here. There's few women, and all I could say is that we need to get more women in the construction so we can prosper and earn our spot here too. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Carly, and thanks for sharing your experience. And I see you're in your uniform, so I understand that you're working today, and you've taken time out of your day to speak to us and introduce yourself and your perspective as an Indigenous woman in the construction industry. So we appreciate your time, and so we're going to move on to our next guest, the Chief Prevention Officer for the Ministry of Labor, Training and Skills Development. Welcome, Ron.
And congratulations, Carly, on the Powerline program, and for IHSA being able to deliver that to Indigenous people. So that's wonderful. And thank you, Amina and Richard and Andrew and RESCON for your leadership in this file. And thanks for inviting me to speak on this day of significance. As Amina had indicated, that the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is observed annually. And it's on the day that the police in Sharpeville, South Africa, opened fire and killed 69 people at a peaceful demonstration against apartheid, which passed laws in 1960. And regrettably, racism still is experienced daily in the workplace and in our society at large. So the recent anti-Black racist events here in Ontario and Canada and south of the border in the US has brought this issue to the forefront of our collective awareness, but again, it's been long-standing. And in Ontario, and even in this past week, we have incidents on construction sites which we're all well aware of. It may seem like we are at a point in history where racism is resurfacing, but the truth is it really never went away. But in that regard, I'm very proud of the construction sector and its rallied together in its response to this issue. And I'm also proud to be a standing member on RESCON's Anti-Racism Workplace Policies Subcommittee. Over the past, a couple of things have happened in the past, I would say since June, since the Floyd incident south of the border. It's created an awareness, and I'll speak about some of the activities that have happened within the government. It's really opened our eyes to say that we can no longer say we're working on it. We have to say we are speaking as one, we are working together, and our goal is set and clearly articulated. It can't be that fuzzy, yeah, don't worry about it. We've got it all in hand, and year over year, nothing changes. As you know, we have a prevention council. The prevention council is made up a number of people appointed by the minister, who advises both myself and the minister on matters concerning health and safety. And at the prevention council meeting in October, the council designated a large portion of the meeting to discussions and remarks around anti-racism, and more specifically, anti-Black racism, and notwithstanding the need to look at diversity and inclusion across the construction industry as well. And both our minister and our deputy minister provided remarks emphasizing the work that needs to be done both individually, systemically, and as a health and safety system. Ellis Dawn and Modern Niagara spoke about the prevalence of racism and discrimination within the construction sector, and presented to the council their current work and ongoing initiatives. And some of those projects included the further education of employees on issues and increasing awareness, reevaluating their current reporting mechanisms and creating new ways for employees to report acts of racism or discrimination in the way they feel safe in doing so, and working within communities where they have job sites to provide mentorship to youth, and addressing the wage gap across the board to ensure peoples of color are getting paid the same as their white colleagues who are in the same job position. The Prevention Council applauded the work of companies that and the work they're doing to address these issues in the workplace, and encouraged organization and health and safety partners to begin or continue to have important dialogue regarding the impact of systemic barriers on employees of color. And we all know so well that the government's initiatives in expanding the trades and filling the trade gap that's occurring over the next decade, in order to be successful, we have to deal with these issues right up front and quickly. At the beginning of the year, the Prevention Council set out an anti-Black racism statement to the health and safety system to encourage all of us to play a key role in fostering an environment that allows for open dialogue on historical roots and current events of anti-Black racism and discrimination. These conversations and changes can be difficult and uncomfortable, but you can lead the way by speaking openly about topics like racism and inequality. And it's, you know, as everybody knows the old adage, you can't work towards a solution until you admit you have a problem. And we have a problem. So within the ministry, and especially within the prevention system, we're doing the same thing. And let me just tell you a little bit quickly of some of the initiatives that my office has taken on. For the first time, we've set up a divisional committee on the topic of anti-racism, focusing on anti-Black racism for the first 12 months. And one of our first initiatives has been setting up training and learning sessions for all staff. We polled within our ministry, we opened the dialogue on a confidential number, and over 500 people responded. And we got some really gut-wrenching information that opened our eyes regarding the systemic nature of racism that exists even within ministries. And these initiatives we've taken across the ministry, and I'm proud to say at this point we are taking it very seriously. And it's imperative that the ministry continues to encourage employers across the province to create safe places and to hold meaningful and ongoing dialogue about racism and discrimination in the workplace. And if we don't lead it, it's not going to happen. So we got to walk the talk as well. Employers need to understand their duties respecting workplace violence and workplace harassment within the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and our inspectors enforce these provisions during their workplace visits. Our government has embraced diversity and anti-racism in the workplace, while also recognizing the corrosive impacts of racism on individuals. Embracing and acknowledge these issues are not just a social imperative, but it's also a business imperative. Companies cannot exclude large segments of the population and hope to succeed. The Deputy Minister is proud to see the industry has confronted this issue and how the government is wholeheartedly committed to helping to effect positive changes. The ministry is currently in the process of launching the province's next 5-year occupational health and safety strategy with the plan to release in the spring of 2021. Throughout the strategy, the ministry and our occupational health and safety system partners are committed to applying evidence and informed risk-based approaches to address health and safety issues. In order to better understand who's being impacted in the workplace by injury and illness, and to better support vulnerable workers across Ontario, we plan to collect data on known and suspected markers of vulnerability. This includes, for example, collecting data on gender, race, ingenuity, and disability and income. We would like to use this data to target workplace health and safety programs that will help workers who are at greater risk of injury. And that injury might include both psychological as well as physical injury. So today, I want to thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'd like to also thank RESCON for its leadership on this file and for acknowledging the importance for us to work together and to establish mechanisms for us to look at every possibility of how we can resolve that. And the subcommittee that we're working on within RESCON that Amina will probably speak to later on in this conference has come up with a number of ideas to be able to help us achieve where we want to be. And during this time of the pandemic, which data is telling us in many cases is disproportionately affected racialized communities, it's crucial to keep up this issue at the forefront, bringing ideas and solutions that can make a difference and build a path forward that we can be proud of. So thank you, and miigwech.
Thanks, Ron. Your involvement in RESCON's anti-racism efforts has been foundational, and as well as your commitment to the health and safety of every worker in the construction industry is much appreciated. Our next speaker, also from a health and safety perspective, is Michelle Roberts. She's the Director of Stakeholder and Client Engagement at the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association, also known as IHSA.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for including IHSA in this webinar. I'm hoping you can see my screen. Great, thank you for the acknowledgement. IHSA is one of the partners in Ontario's health and safety system, and we are a trusted resource for the construction, electrical utilities, and the transportation sector. And we are committed to improving the lives of Ontario workers and are proud of our role in helping to make Ontario one of the safest places to work in the world. IHSA acknowledges that threats and acts of racial discrimination and violence in Ontario and across the country are dehumanizing and unacceptable. They leave many workplace parties hurting, experiencing racial trauma, loss, and fear. The ability to recognize and address racism through fairness, empathy, mindfulness, and a commitment to equality and diversity are required in order to reject racism from our workplaces. We need to make room for all voices and perspectives in very constructive conversations. And as a health and safety leader, it is imperative that we encourage and support the creation of safe spaces to hold meaningful and ongoing dialogue about racism and discrimination. And to reaffirm our commitment to reject all forms of racism and discrimination, IHSA urges all Ontarians to do their part to speak up against racism and discrimination in our workplaces and in our communities. IHSA is committed to working with construction sector partners and having those critical conversations. And this is why I wanted to briefly share with you a series of resources that IHSA has available to help spark those much needed conversations in the workplace. So firstly, we have been expanding upon our existing toolkit that's available that addresses workplace violence and harassment and bullying. And most recently, we've added specific tools to address racial discrimination in the workplace. In this toolkit, you will find additional information, including guidelines, bulletins, an e-learning program, safety talk, as well as reference to other external resources that exist in the province of Ontario on the specific topic. In particular, we did release a bulletin, which is a 4-page document outlining IHSA's commitment to combating racism in the workplace and the need to foster workplaces of inclusion and equality. And we will continue to achieve this while partnering with key industry stakeholders like RESCON through the CARE program. The bulletin also provides a brief overview of the legal obligations employers have and the requirement to have strong workplace violence and harassment policies, procedures, and programs that address racism in the workplace. Additionally, to help with the conversation and to bring this to the forefront, we recently published our newest magazine, which is a quarterly publication, and we included an article on rejecting racism and the obligations that we have as employers in the province of Ontario under workplace legislation. It addresses the negative impact that racism has in our work environment, along with reminders of employers' legal obligations and the need to reinforce that racism is unacceptable behavior. It is a hazard to mental and physical safety. And like other preventable risks to physical safety or mental well-being in the workplace, employers need to have a zero tolerance policy on racism in the workplace. And most recently, we've just updated and launched a new safety talk to help spark that very important conversation that's required in the workplace. And this has just been published and released. It is titled Racial Discrimination in the Workplace. And it covers in high level, like our safety talk formats do, explaining what racial discrimination is and the fact that it is a form of workplace violence and harassment, the hazards and the dangers that it creates in our workplace, and most importantly, on critical controls and steps that workplace parties can take to combat racism. So things that it would include that we would love to spark that conversation and have a dialogue with our workers, to reinforcing that there is policies and procedures. What are they that the employer has rolled out? Recommended worker actions, so certainly reinforcement of acting respectfully, not engaging with behaviors. We want to be able to challenge some of those behaviors that we see in the workplace, become educated on how to support others, and also being an ally and strengthening the relationships, and certainly contributing to reporting incidents if racism or discrimination is happening in the workplace. And so this safety talk is available, and all of these resources that I just shared with you today are available on our website, free to download, so they can be utilized right away. And we recommend, from a call of action, that anyone who's attending this webinar today, please visit our website to access this safety talk and plan for a safety talk in recognition of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And on a final note, just to remind you that as we progress with our safety partners through this initiative to tackle racism in the workplace, if there is additional resources or solutions that are required, please let IHSA know. We are here to help. We are just a call or a click away, and you can visit us at ihsa.ca. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. So like Michelle said, the resources are on the IHSA's website, and Andrew also shared that resource in the chat. But I'll also be sending this safety talk specifically to attendees with a call to action, like you said, Michelle, in recognition of International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. We have next Varney Thailand from the Toronto Community Benefits Network. She's leading the Building Diversity Awards and will detail the importance of the awards to our collective efforts in addressing racism and discrimination. So welcome, Varney.
Thank you so much, Amina. Thank you for the invitation today. And, I'm privileged to be here with all of you. And today I'm here to present Building Diversity Awards that is led by Toronto Community Benefits Network. My name is Varney Thailand. I am the manager of Community Benefits Programs at TCBN. So Toronto Community Benefits Network, it's a foundation of 120 labor coalition members, and it serves racialized communities across Toronto. The goal is to negotiate community benefits agreement to secure good jobs and economic opportunities for communities from investment in infrastructure and urban development. Some of the programs that we serve include some pre-apprenticeship programs for candidates who are looking for jobs in the construction industry. We have job opportunities that we find for professional, administrative, and technical positions. And there is social procurement and neighborhood and environment improvement services as well. So the community benefits agreements are legally binding documents that actually amplifies the benefits that the communities receive in large infrastructure projects, including economic opportunities and neighborhood improvements and social procurement, and also any other improvements that can come about using this agreement. We also assist the contractors with monitoring, evaluation, and enforcement mechanisms to ensure the agreements are, complied. So the current 4 projects that TCBN is providing oversight to are Eglinton Crosstown LRT, Finch West LRT, Rexdale Casino Woodbine expansion, and West Park Healthcare Center. The benefits of community benefits agreements not only benefit the communities, but it also benefits unions, contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers who are involved in these huge contracts, and also the government, in order to recognize the skill shortages, and they will be providing the support in order for us to implement programs in various aspects as well. Currently, TCBN has government-funded programs that we provide services for, in which we prepare candidates and we help them to access job opportunities in the construction industry. So, Building Diversity Awards program is one-of-a-kind awards program in order to recognize those contractors, unions, and communities in Ontario that are leading the way by working together to increase diversity within the construction industry. This award is in its inaugural year, and I'm proud to announce that RESCON is a proud sponsor, an award sponsor for this particular program this year. The Building Diversity Awards program builds the awareness of the role that Toronto Community Benefits Network plays in helping contractors and unions benefit from diversity. It promotes the use of world-class best practices that can be adapted to any industry, and it inspires the construction industry to do more in order to hire racialized folks such as women, newcomers, and indigenous communities, and so forth. So Building Diversity Awards program. In this program, the award recipients will be recognized for one or more steps they are taking that correspond to the global diversity inclusion benchmarks. This is a standard for the organization around the world, as adapted by Buildforce Canada for the construction industry. The award recipients will be eligible for assistance after the program ends in order to help them to develop a comprehensive plan to recruit, embrace the diversity of their local workforce. So the background and rationale for the Building Diversity Awards program comes about with a concept that was discussed by Diversity and Equity Working Group in 2018. In order to recognize industry champions already implementing best practices, to encourage others to follow in their footsteps, and also to recognize the progress in diverse hiring and retention. So there are 5 categories of awards under the Building Diversity Awards program. So we recognize and own a client who is a government agency issuing the contracts for publicly funded construction project. We also recognize a contractor who's leading the way by creating opportunities for people from diverse communities. We are also recognizing a union who's working together with the contractors and subcontractors to make sure that diversity and inclusion practices are implemented and they're hiring on a regular basis and the retention takes place as well. We also recognize an individual who is a champion. This award recognizes someone who works in the community who has done exceptional work assisting other organizations or contractors or subcontractors, and also community service organizations in order to help assist in the hiring process of from racialized communities into the construction industry. We also have the last award is about Next Gen Builders Champion Award. This is about recognizing either a mentor or a mentee who has gained knowledge or given knowledge to someone and who has succeeded in the construction industry. The awards program will take place on May 13th. The nominations is going to be closing on March 30th. So I encourage for you to learn a little bit more about this awards program. There is no fee for nominating anybody. It's a free process, and it's a very simple process. If you need more information, I'm more than happy to share that with you. The website is buildingdiversity.ca, and my contact information is here as well. I can put it in the chat as well. So if you want to know more, please do reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to assist you with the process and help you to understand what the program is about. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to RESCON.
Thank you, Barney. I guess since we do have a bit of time and we're running ahead of schedule, if there were any questions specifically for Barney relating to the Building Diversity Awards. I guess we'll pause here quickly. Otherwise, you can utilize the chat and ask questions to Varney there about the awards. But again, like she said, RESCON is a sponsor, and I do encourage you to learn more about the work of TCBN and more specifically the Building Diversity Awards.
Someone did message me and they just asked, how do you apply or how do you nominate someone for an award? If there's a link or something you put in the chat, if you could explain it.
Yes, sure. So you just have to go to buildingdiversity.ca and there is a nominate tab. So when you click on it, you'll be able to see all the 5 categories of nominations for the award. I'm just going to be putting in the link there. And all you need to do is, it's a simple process. So if you're nominating a contractor, so first step is to fill out a survey on our website. And from there, you will get an email in order to fill out a Build Force Canada assessment. And that's another short survey, and that's about it. And then you are nominated. So if you want to nominate yourselves, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Or if you recognize someone else that you've worked with, a subcontractor, contractor, or an individual, or a union, that you're more than welcome to do that as well. And I'm going to put in the chat my contact information as well. So you can send me an email and I'll be able to assist you in understanding.
Thanks, Varney. There's also a question for you about if you're already a sponsor, you're already involved within the network. Are there marketing materials that partners can use to promote the awards in their newsletters or member emails?
Absolutely. So we do have collateral materials that we have sent out already to our existing contractors that we're already working with, and RESCON has been promoting, and they'll be doing a great job as well, including Allyship is the lead sponsor for the event. They have been promoting as well. So we have lots of materials. So if you want any information, please do reach out to me. My email is there. I'll be more than happy to send you all the correspondence materials as well.
Perfect. And can you make sure that, I think you sent it to all panelists. Can you make sure you send it to all panelists and attendees? Because I don't think the attendees can see the link in the chat. Are you, unless maybe I can only do that. I'll try that. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Varney. And yes, there's a shout out in the chat to the Ontario Construction Secretariat and Catherine Jacobs for the weekly update. So thank you. And so our last speaker, last but not least, is Nadine Williams, who is an artist, poet, and arts educator. And she has become a very close friend to RESCON over the past couple of months. She spoke at one of our anti-racism roundtable meetings recently in February, and we're thrilled to have her close off our webinar. We do have, we started late, but we're running ahead of schedule. So if time permits at the end, I'll give a bit more info about RESCON's anti-racism roundtable and the 3 different subcommittees. But I'll kick it over to Nadine now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed my honor and privilege to be here with you guys this afternoon in the celebration of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. I'm going to start by reading a few poems to you, and then I will speak not only to the poem, but to some of the work that I'm engaged in, particularly as it pertains to our youth, which is the theme for this year's observance. Motion. Standing water will never make its way into a stream. It's in motion that it stands a chance to make it to the ocean, creating a commotion when putting rivers in spate, moving boulders where they once comfortably sat, commanding respect as it moves along a riverbed. It's not how fast it rushes downstream one must glean, but that it's in motion. Stagnation does not stand a chance, but thirsty nations do quench their thirst when the river bursts. Doing is winning. Pace yourself. Some days it's a sprint, while on others, it's a marathon. The world might not always cheer you on, so do not be afraid to be your own cheerleader. The fact that you're in the race puts you in the space to be placed. Everyone wants first place, everyone. But first you must get in the race. Your thirst will do the rest and bring out your personal best. If that means placing last, it's not just for laughs. It's your warm-up, your practice run, and your name will be running on tongues for days. We'll leave the world dazed when you beat the record holder. Remember this one thing and don't you ever forget. In the stands, you're just a mere spectator. In the race, first or last, you are spectacular. So get in the race, run at your own pace, for doing is winning and winning is doing personified. If they were black, they would never make it into that block. The world would have to find another reason to be left shell-shocked. If they were black, their plans would have been thwarted before they even got started. No stones would ever be left unturned, giving them a chance to be hurled. If they were black, they would be nursing so much more than black eyes and bruised egos. Nurses would stay long past their shifts. The world shifted one January night, for if they were black, they couldn't casually board planes and make it back to the planes intact without encountering tactical units. I promise you that. If they were black, there would be frantic calls for units of blood as street washers wash away stains down the drains. If they were black, they wouldn't feel so emboldened to climb those stairs and sit in Nancy's chair or engage in stare downs. If they were black, lawmakers would never ever have their backs in that block. Thankfully, they weren't black. Sadly, they were white. Disgustingly, the world saw the epitome of hypocrisy. Hopefully they will learn, for darkness can never ever consume light. Black or white, we are one. Fairness, it may never ever ever come in this lifetime, but love wins every time. I promise you that. I love you. These two pieces of poetry I wanted to share with you. The world, if we were asleep, our eyes were open, wide open in January. And so this particular piece of poetry, if they were black, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. What I am saying, however, is that now that we know, now that our eyes are open, we need to be in motion. We need to put in some work, and it requires every hand on deck, whether we're black or white. All of us can do this work. And so this is a call to action. You know, the fact that I have the immense privilege of working with students is one of the ways in which I am choosing to do this work, impacting students, allowing them to find their voices. I have had the honor in the month of February, actually beginning the latter part of January into March, I've had the honor of reading and sharing and storytelling and working with students, and they number in the thousands. I was doing 7, 8, and 9 presentations a day. I would get up in the morning and I felt like I was running a marathon. I'm coming down a little bit off of that now, but within that process, I saw and I heard the voices of students. They were writing, they were finding their voices. They were using people like Amanda Gorman, the young poet out of the US, as a catalyst to launch them into their own observances of what's been happening, and voicing that, not being afraid, having the courage to stand up and to speak up. Within that month as well, there are 2 incidents that happened that really stood out for me that I'd like to share with you guys as well. I received a newsletter from one of my banks, and the bank in that newsletter, they were indicating that In this issue, we want small businesses to be aware of fraud prevention. And also in this issue, we are celebrating Black History Month, but they talked quite a bit more about the fraud prevention and ways in which Canadians can protect their hard-earned money. And then within that same paragraph, they're telling us in this issue, we're also celebrating Black History Month. I took issue with that. And these are the subtle, like there is, the racism that is faced in Canada. People might say, oh, we're not like them. We hear that quite a bit, but it's these subtle little things that we have to call out. Why is it that Fraud Prevention Month being March? Why don't we hear about fraud prevention at the end of February then? To bring people up to speed that next month we're celebrating or we're acknowledging fraud prevention, and separate it, make Black History Month at the beginning of February or the end of January, but lumping the two together, telling us about fraud and Black history in that same paragraph, it is problematic because you see fraud and you see Blacks. And so we have to use our voice when we see these and people might say, oh, you're being too sensitive, Nadine. No, you have to call them out on it. And was the bank intending to be malicious and no, not at all. It's about educating. We're all learning as we go. And as we learn, we teach. So, maybe many years ago, that wouldn't mean anything to me, but being engaged in this work and my eyes being open, I realized that these subtle things, because when you then go into the bank as a Black woman, myself, a business owner, I've often had interactions where, where I'm treated, the treatment there is rough. And it stems from these little messages, frauds and Blacks tied into one. So we got to call them out. And when I wrote to the manager at my bank, his response to me, he apologized because, again, I do not believe there was any malicious intent. The apology came, and you know what the resolution was? I will remove you from the mailing list. It flew right over his head. He'll remove me from the mailing list. So I'm now going to be penalized. The bank could be offering other things. I will no longer be aware of this because I'm now removed from the mailing list. And I could say, thank you, my friend, and move right on. But no, that wasn't good enough. I escalated it because it needs to be addressed. It needs to get all the way up back to the marketing team where they can be cognizant of these messaging that's being sent out. And now I'm at the place where I'm sitting with the ombudsman. That's where it's gotten because the resolution wasn't satisfactory. We have to use our voices. We have to speak up. It might be the smallest things. And that's one thing. The other thing, I was on a panel discussion and there were two Black speakers, one at the top and one at the bottom, and interspersed throughout, there were Caucasian speakers. And this older gentleman, a dignitary in the session, he says to he mentioned how struck he was at the eloquence of the Black speaker. Right away, that struck me as being, it struck a chord for me because, he wasn't struck by the eloquence of all the other speakers, but he was struck by the eloquence of the Black speaker. And so right away, I made a little note. Would I jump on and say, hey, buddy, no, we have to use wisdom. And again, was this man ill-intentioned? Not at all. I'm sure he was coming from the most sincere place, but it is that he didn't realize it. At the very end, again, when the other Black speaker spoke. And so even if I wanted to dismiss it, I realized it was a pattern. When the other Black speaker spoke, again, he spoke of how struck he was at the eloquence of the speaker. Right away, I started scribbling some notes. Do not be struck by our eloquence. We wrote the book on it, but no, I stopped there. But I was able to certainly not call him out in the session and embarrass him because that's not what it's about. It's about educating each other. We might not know these things. The way it strikes me, it certainly isn't the way it's going to strike someone else. So we have to be open to having these dialogues and to be able to do it in a diplomatic way where we're not attacking people, we're trying to educate. And I was able at the very end, I was able to bring the point across to him, not personally, but the moderator. I was able to make the point, and she made it to him, and he certainly saw the point that I made. And I'm sure going forward, this would then help him, educate him to, to perhaps change around. Or if you're going to be struck by the eloquence of the speaker, be struck by the eloquence of all the speakers. I also want to speak to allyship, and I know that I'm going to make sure that my time, I'm cognizant of the time. I'm going to tell you a little story about allyship as well. This last year for me was really, really, really rough because of the pandemic. I found myself, I had all these plans. I'm working on an art installation project that commemorates the International Decade for People of African Descent. In fact, I should definitely mention that. Today we're observing the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. But did you know, or I hope you know, that we are actually in the International Decade for People of African Descent? It's a UN proclamation that spans 2015 to 2024. I create Black History Month posters, and my 2017 poster was in celebration of the decade. And I had gone to work promoting the International Decade and with an art installation project. And I was supposed to be doing a bit of traveling and all of that. So it was really, this year was really a low point for me because all my plans were canceled. There was no traveling happening and all of this. And I was pretty down. And let me tell you something about allies. In January, when I woke up and I'm like, Nadine, it's February next month. This is supposed to be the busiest time of year for you. What are you doing about this? And when I looked on my calendar, I had about 2 commitments throughout the month for Black History Month. And I immediately made a couple phone calls to a couple administrators. And let me tell you, I went from having those 2 bookings to doing 7 and 8 and 9 in a day. And the work that they did for me in that, it truly epitomizes my 2021 Black History Month poster poem called All Aboard, Nurturing Hope Through Allies. And I'd like to share that with you now. There are many important ships that we will sail upon on the sea of life, while friendships and relationships are among the most popular. Yet still, there are some that have yet to be discovered. Sail with me and help me navigate these rough seas. Come on board, but not as a spectator. There is so much work to do. Stand up, speak up, grab a bucket or 2 in the crashing waves. Open a map or check the weather forecast before the ship sails. No matter the shade of our skin or the shape we're in, we all win when we get on board the ally ship. Each and every one of us can do this work, whether we're working as allies. And let me tell you, I've truly seen the power of allyship and what that can accomplish. I remember sometime in the fall, I started to randomly apply to 6-figure jobs because I'm like, this, my work, it's not happening. I need to put it aside. And the work of allies within this period of time, I was able to rival the same income that I was going after for 1 year. I was able to solidify that within this short time. Never ever underestimate the power of allyship and what we can all accomplish when we put our hands, all hands on deck. Each and every one of us can do this work. Whether we've gotten a correspondence from our bank and we write to them to educate them and let them know, because they may not have known, right? So I want to encourage you all to continue to do this work. I want to thank you so much, RESCON, for championing this, right? We know that there are observances throughout the year, many different days, but also just in the spirit of the decade for people of African descent. I want to encourage us all to continue to do this work because there's still so much to be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nadine. Your words are always extremely powerful and meaningful. And one thing that you shared about your experience with the bank kind of made me reflect on how we need to be as an industry and just individually. Again, we need to be foster more allyship, but we also need to be a bit more intentional in our actions. And I think being more intentional very broadly means a lot of different things, but I think it can change a lot of what we're doing. I also just wanted to say that on that note of allyship, I posted Nadine's, the link to her website in the chat, and I'll also make sure to send it. But we've had 5 different speakers who have all given their time here today to share some resources and share their experiences. And so I know a lot of people have come to me and said, oh, I don't know where to start, or how do I learn more about being anti-racist or anti-discrimination? And so use these resources that we're providing, be more intentional, and be an ally. Like Michelle said, there is a safety talk that they've developed, and that's kind of RESCON's call to action. The first thing is that thanks for attending this event. It's great that everyone was able to attend. And then the second call to action is, again, in recognition of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. I encourage you to speak to the people who are responsible for holding safety talks and encourage them to hold a safety talk sometime next week in recognition of this day. I'll leave it there because I know we're running out of time. RESCON is doing a lot of work on this, on the topic of anti-racism and anti-discrimination, but we do have a lot of work to continue to do, and we have a lot to accomplish. And this isn't just a 2021, 2020 thing. This is a strategic priority going forward. So we'll continue to update you on the roundtable and the subcommittees of the roundtable. And again, we'll make sure to share all of the resources that were discussed today. And please reach out to the speakers who generously devoted an hour of their time today to speak to us. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye,
you.
thank you.
Here, well done. Thanks, Michelle. Take care.